Welcome back to CanHammer, everybody. Today's episode on Read Along, the Drukhari Codex. Reggie, are you of the Dark Kin? I think you are, Reggie. You look a little bit like a homunculus. What do you think, Reggie? What do you think? Welcome back to CanHammer, everybody, your source for 40k from the Great White North. Today's read-along is on the new Codex Drukhari, aka Dark Eldar. I don't know if I'll ever get used to calling them Drukhari, but I guess that's what it is. It's just like I don't hear many people using the word Eldari over Eldar. But anyway, I guess we'll get used to it at some point. So this is the newest Codex released, and there is a lot of talk about it. I think the overall impression is that Dark Eldar players, those loyal Dark Eldar players, have been rewarded for their faith. After so many years of being at the basement, basically, they have a chance to rise to the top, or near to the top, with this book. So we'll go through it and see how good it is. Now, not being one of those Dark Eldar players, I don't know much about Dark Eldar, and honestly have not seen them on the table for since I started playing anyway. But we'll have a look at everything, and we should be able to draw comparisons to other recent codexes, and we'll see how it fares. So let's get going. So it's not a super thick book. The total number of pages is 128, so it's 8 pages longer than the Necron Codex. And the rules start at page 86, so pretty much the same with every codex. 1/3 of it is fluff. So let's start with the rules. Of course, they get their keywords. So the Dark Eldar are split into cabals, witch cults, and homunculus covens. These are like 3 separate kind of parts of Dark Eldar society, I guess. I'm not super familiar with the fluff, but that's kind of what it is. And they may have specific names. For example, the Cult of Strife, but that would be a witch cult. So every data sheet will have one of those 3 factions: cabal, witch cults, or homunculus covens. And I think people are getting different warlord traits depending on which one of those you are. So it may come in significance. Okay. They have the following common abilities. So anything that's a poison weapon, wounds on a 4+, or 6+ against a vehicle or a titanic. So that is quite powerful, I feel, in this edition, where lots of things are 5s. It allows you to wound high toughness things on 4+. Now, of course, if you have stronger shooting, then that's probably a disadvantage, but probably most of the codex strength-wise is set so that a wounding on the poison weapons anyway, wounding on 4+ is probably pretty useful. Now, I don't know if there's stratagems in here that make the poison more strong and you wound on a 3 or something like that, but certainly it can be useful to always wound on a 4+. So the characteristic trait for Dark Eldar is they have this rule, power from pain. Every unit in the army gains this bonus, and the bonus is dependent on the battle round. So, and they are cumulative. So here are the bonuses. In the first battle round, you are inured to suffering. You basically have a 6+ feel no pain automatically, straight up. That's obviously very good for free. So everybody starts with a 6+ feel no pain. In battle round 2, you will be able to reroll dice when determining how far a unit moves when it advances or charges. So That is great. Second round, when things are starting to get a little bit hairy, you will automatically be able to reroll your charges. Flensing Fury in round 3, add 1 to hit rolls in the fight phase. That is really good. Everything's probably hitting on 3s, and so hitting on 2s in close combat in the third round, very good. Emboldened by Bloodshed in round 4, units with this bonus automatically pass morale tests. So near the end of the game, when you really need things to stick around, you get to automatically, you're fearless basically, which is really good. And battle round 5 up, subtract 1 from leadership of enemy units within 6 inches. So again, at the crucial end stages of the game, minusing 1 for your opponent's leadership may be something that wins you the game. So overall, Power from Pain is quite good. They also have combat drugs. So with combat drugs, units with this ability gain a bonus during the battle depending on the drugs injected into their veins. Before the battle, roll on the table below to see which combat drug the unit is using, or you can pick the bonus the unit receives, but if you do so, you cannot choose a bonus that has already been taken by another unit until all 6 drugs have been taken. So these are the drugs. +1 to attack, +1 to strength, +2 to move, +1 to toughness, +1 to weapon skill, and +2 to leadership. Okay, well, yeah, we'll have to see what units have the combat drugs, but probably combat units, in which case take large units having +1 attack is awesome. Strength is probably the least useful one here. Toughness can be very useful. +2 move, okay, but they're already getting reroll advance and charges, so might not be as applicable. Weapon skill +1 could be helpful. It could take you down to weapon skill 3 up, and then in the third round you start getting +1 hit rolls, so you're hitting on 2s. And +2 leadership is probably the least useful, depending on the leadership value of these guys. By round 4, you're passing morale automatically. So, but I can see big unit of chaff that is like 1 attack or 2 attacks each, now getting an extra attack for free, basically. That's pretty good. All right, we'll go through. So, Archon, he's your basic HQ model. And he's hitting on 2s and 2s. Eldari, so strength 3, toughness 3. He has 5 wounds, 5 attacks, and a 5-up save with a splinter pistol and a husk blade. So anything splinter is going to be poisoned. So here's our first poisoned weapon, Agonizer. Agonizer is also poisoned at strength 3, but you know the strength doesn't matter, of course, because it wounds on a 4+. So -2 AP, 1 damage. So not too bad. So interesting, Venom Blade is a poison weapon, but adds 2 to the wound rolls. So basically you're wounding on a 2+, automatically wounding. Shadow Field. This model has a 2+ invulnerable save. I think that might be one of few 2+ invulns in the whole game, which it cannot be rerolled for any reason. The first time it fails, the Shadow Field ceases to function. It goes to a 5-up save. So that is still the same as before, but 2-up invuln is pretty good. And reroll hit rolls, so he's like a captain. Hit rolls of 1 for Cabal units within 6 inches. And he is Cabal. Then we have Drazar, which I think is a named character. Yeah, and he's an Incubi. Drazar is what? Drazar is a witch cult, or I don't know. Incubi. Yep, I don't know. And so he's a named character, and oh, these guys don't have power from pain. Murderous assault. Fight an additional time in the next fight phase if he charges. Pretty good. 5-up invuln, and add 1s to the hit rolls for friendly Incubi within 6 inches. Okay, then we have Lilith Hesprax. So she's like the queen of the witch cults, apparently, and she is only 4 power, so she's probably not that expensive in points. She basically has the same stat line as the Archon, except she has less attacks. And only a 6+ save. Of course, she's not wearing very much. And she has the 2 penetrating blades and a mane of barbs and hooks. So you can see her hair has all sorts of hooks and spikes in it. So her main of barbs and hooks is just a strength user, and she gets 2 attacks with it, additional attacks, so it's 6 attacks with it, AP 0, 1 damage. And the penetrating blades again is makes extra attacks, but strength 3 at -4 AP. And so she can reroll hit and wound rolls against characters, and in the fight phase, reroll hit rolls of 1 for Cult of Strife units while they're within 6 inches of her. She has a 3+ invuln. 3+ invuln, very nice. Natural Perfection. Start of each battle round, choose one of the following of Lilith's characteristics: move, strength, toughness, attacks, or leadership. Increase by 1 until the end of the battle round. Interesting. And so she'll be strength goes up to strength 4. Probably that's the best thing to do if you're meaning to get into combat, because you have so many attacks at only strength 3. Roll off if an infantry unit is within 1 inch of an enemy model with this ability wishes to fall back. The unit can only fall back if the player controlling it wins the roll off. So that's called no escape, and that is very cool rule. That's the only rule we've seen like that in the game so far that stops falling back, which is a very powerful tactic. So she is a Cult of Strife character. The Succubus. The Succubus is like a character for the witch cults. And it's a basic model, basically the same stat line as Lilith, and allows reroll hit rolls of 1 for witch cults. So she's like your captain for witch cults, and 4+ invuln and the no escape rule as well. So nice little HQ there. Urian Rakarth. He is a Prophets of Flesh, so he's a homunculus HQ, named HQ. He has the same stat line across the board. And roll d6 for each enemy unit within 3 inches of Urian Rakarth at the start of the fight phase. On a 6, that unit suffers a mortal wound. Okay. Add 1 to strength and leadership of Prophets of Flesh units within 6 inches of him. 4+ invuln, all damage suffered by him is halved. And add 1 to the toughness characteristic of units within 6 inches of him. Pretty sweet. So he adds to strength, leadership, and toughness for Prophets of Flesh. So he's definitely a guy you might want to take if you're running that group. He has some poison weapons. He has an assault 2d6 12-inch gun that can only be shot once per battle. It's a strength 3, -2, 1 damage, so not great. Okay, and here's the basic homunculus here, which is pretty similar to Urian, but not a lot of buffs. He just has the Master of Pain, which adds 1 to the toughness. And a 5+ invuln. Alright, here's your basic troops that people have been spamming. Kabalite Warriors, and I guess people will still be spamming it to get access to Dark Eldar Stratagems, which are so good. We'll come to later, but you might see this as a definite cheap battalion of a couple of cheap HQs and some Kabalite Warriors, or even a patrol. So these guys are pretty basic. Strength 3, Tough 3, 1 wound, 1 attack, 7 leadership, and a 5+ save, but they move 7 inches, which is pretty sweet. Hits on 3s across the board, and you can take up to 20 of these guys in a unit. They have access to a whole bunch of different weapons, kind of like a tac squad basically. I don't know if it's worth upgrading these guys, but they do have access to Dark Lances, which of course are the 36-inch Malta weapons, and Splinter Cannons, which are 36-inch rapid fire 3 poison weapons. So there's some play there, and they are, of course, are Cabal. That's why they're called Kabalite Warriors. So the witches are for the witch cults, the basic troops. These guys have Dark Eldar stats across the board, but have 2 attacks base, 3 for the sergeant, 6+ t-shirt save, and can also go up to 20-man units. They're probably pretty cheap, and they have access to also a bunch of different things, but probably want these guys to be combat oriented. Hekatari blades and agonizers and poison weapons, things like that. They have a 6+ invuln normally, and they have 4+ invulnerable save in the fight phase. So again, another unit that doesn't care about armor save, and they have the no escape rule, of course, which is quite good. If you can tie stuff down with these guys, it's really good. So racks are the troop choices for the homunculus covens. They basically are a little bit tougher. They have a toughness of 4, and of course those HQs we just looked at increase the toughness of these guys to 5. So they're pretty tough troops. They're probably a little bit more expensive. You can only take them in units of 5. They have 2 attacks at base and have a 5+ invuln standard, which is pretty good. They have a couple of short to medium range shooting weapons, poison weapons, things like that. Lamian, 1 power elite. So this looks like something that you could use to fill the elite slot in a brigade. Strength, toughness 3, wounds 3, 2 attacks, 5 up save. Shemisi blade, which is just a poison blade. Court of the Archon reroll failed hit rolls for this model within 3 inches of any friendly Cabal Archons. In addition, if battle forged, this model does not take up slots in a detachment that includes any Cabal Archons. Okay, so these, you can just throw these guys in for free. You don't even need a brigade, but so it does not take up slots in a detachment. So therefore, it wouldn't fill brigade elite slots. It does not take up slots if you have a Cabal Archon. Interesting. I guess, is it Space Wolves that have the Lone Wolves that don't take up slots, so you can't use them either? So the Medusa is Cabal elite. Eye Burst, which is basically extra strong 9-inch bolter, and reroll hit rolls for this model. Yeah, so it's basically another version of the Lamian, from what I can see. A short range version of the Lamian. And a Slith, Court of the Archon. Court of the Archon. I don't know what the Court of the Archon keyword represents. Maybe it's just a fluff thing, but it's not been clarified what Court of the Archon is. Or Slith. But this is a Cabal, another cheap elite likely, and has the same rules as the Lamian. Has a 5+ invuln. And so this is like a bodyguard. So every time Archon loses a wound on 2+, you can take it on this guy instead. So maybe it's like this model here, this like ghoul looking model. Ghoul is another cheap elite, which has the same rules basically. Incubi are your I think the Incubi are witch cults. Anyway, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And they are your kind of elite fighters. They add 2 to the damage characteristic of a close combat attack made by a Clavex if you roll 6+ on the wound roll. So that's pretty good. So the Clavex, the Clavex is the sergeant of the Incubi. Okay. And he's attacking with a melee weapon that's strength +1, -3 AP, 1 damage. So that attack does 3 damage on a 6-up. Not bad. And then each time your opponent takes a morale test within 6 inches of it, the result of the morale test equals the highest leadership characteristic in the unit. The test is failed and 1 model flees. Each time your opponent takes a morale test for a unit that is within 6 inches and the result is equal to the highest leadership. Okay, so you have to have pretty low leadership for that. Okay, those guys have 3 attacks base, and that is a pretty decent amount of attacks, and you can take them in units of 5. Mandrakes are Eldari Drukhari, so they're not anything, they're not any particular faction, and they have also 3 attacks base, going up to 4 for the sergeant, and can come in units of 10. Bale Blast is an 18-inch assault 2. And the Glimmersteel Blade. Okay, Power from Pain, Out of the Shadows. During deployment, you set this up in... Okay, so they have Deep Strike and subtract 1 from hit rolls of attacks that target this unit. In addition, they have a 5-up invuln save. Okay, -1 to hit them, even in combat it seems, and a 5-up invuln save. That's pretty decent. The Beast Master. Of course, we used to see these guys when we were looking at Razorwing Flocks. Won't go too into it there. Grotesques, you can have a look at there. We'll just skip through all these crazy number of elite slots. Fast attack, let's look at the Razorwing then. So the Razorwing flock is now 3 Razorwings going up to 12 in a flock. 12-inch move, 4+ weapon score, no shooting, 2 strength, 2 toughness, 4 wounds, 4 attacks, and a 7 plus save, so no save. And they are basically just 4 attacks of strength 2 -1 1. So not very impressive. We'll have to see how many points they are again, but they're not impressive as models, that's for sure. A Hurricane Bolter would rock those guys. Okay, so the Reavers. Reavers come with 3 Reavers up to 9 additional Reavers for a unit of 12. These are Reaver jet bikes, obviously. They can move 18 inches, which is crazy fast. Maybe one of the fastest models in the game. They're toughness 4 on their bikes with 2 wounds and a 4-up save. No invuln I can see. They have combat drugs. They can take the Grav Talon. After a unit has completed a charge move, roll a d6 for models with Grav Talon. 4+ they suffer a mortal wound. Cluster Caltrops, roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 1 inch of any models with Cluster Caltrops in a unit that falls back. Roll a d6 for each enemy unit within this that falls back. On a 4+, that unit suffers a wound. So I think what that's saying is that if you fall back and you are within 1 inch of these guys and they have Cluster Caltrops, you take a mortal wound on a 4+ for falling back. I think that's what it means. I don't think it means that when they fall back they do a mortal wound. That falls back within 1 inch of any models that falls back in a unit that falls back within 1 inch of any models with Cluster Caltrops that fall. Okay, so maybe it does mean when these guys fall back they do mortal wounds. Okay, and they add 8 auto advance, so they can go 22 inches. Crazy. They are Witch Cult, of course, and flying bikes. They have access to splinter pistols, and each model is armed with a splinter pistol, splinter rifle, and blood veins. Okay, splinter rifle being your rapid fire 24-inch poison weapon, and splinter pistol, yeah. Okay, decent. These are your Hellions. These are like your Green Goblin dudes. Scourges and Talos. So the Talos was a thing in 7th, if people remember. So let's have a look at these guys. So these guys are heavy support. 1 Talos. You could take 1 additional or 2 additional Talos. They have 2 splinter cannons and a macro scalpel. Splinter cannons, of course, 36-inch rapid fire, 3 poison. And the macro scalpels are strength +1, so strength 7, -2, 2 damage, and makes an additional attack with them. They have 5 attacks base, so it makes 1 additional attack when it has 2 scalpels, so 6 attacks base. Hitting on 3s in combat, strength 6, toughness 6, 7 wounds, and 3+ save, and a 5+ invuln. So these things are pretty sweet. They have power from pain, and they explode, and they have access to a whole bunch of different weapons. You can make them shooty with the stinger pods or the haywire blasters, or you can give them chain flails and other things like that. So all sorts of rules here. So many rules to remember for Dark Eldar. Kronos, Ravager, and Raiders. Of course, these are your Dark Lands carrying transports. So your Ravager actually is not a transport. Nope. Your Raider is a transport. 10 infantry can be carried. Alright, so the Raider is 10 wounds, toughness 5, so it's not hard to kill with a 4-up save. Shoots on a 3 but deteriorates pretty quickly. Has a Dark Lance, of course, and you can has some vehicle equipment you can take, and it's open topped, so this is the only official non-4-year-old model with open top so far as I can see. Models embarked on this model can attack in the shooting phase, draw a line of sight from any point in the model. Any restrictions or modifiers that apply to this model also apply to its passengers. Boom. So open top, there you go. Night Shield's a 5+ invuln, which really helps it, and it explodes. Splinter racks. If this model has splinter racks, each time a model that's embarked upon it shoots a splinter pistol or splinter rifle and you roll 6 up to hit, it scores 2 hits instead of 1. This does not apply to artifacts of cruelty. Okay, so that's pretty good. So you just load this up with 10 dudes with splinter rifles and go to town. The Venom is also open top, so right after I said that, now there's the Venom, which is also open top. These are dedicated transports. The Venom is pretty weak. It's toughness 5, 6 wounds only, so it's like a speeder basically, but it does allow you to shoot open topped, and it has 2 splinter rifles itself. And it's -1 to hit as standard, and it can carry 5 models, so decent. And then you have your 2 fighters, the Razor Wing Jet Fighter and the Void Raven Bomber. Of course, these are mostly Dark Lance vehicles. Night Shield, hard to hit, and there's a mine on the Bomber, which is the usual mine mechanic. So, you know, you fly over something, you drop some mortal wounds. And here's your armory. Give you a second to look at that. Alright, now we get into the good stuff. Alright, special rules. Let's see. So this Drukhari units. In the rules discretion, we often refer to Drukhari and Drukhari warlords. This is shorthand for a unit or warlord that has Drukhari keyword. Note that other Eldari such as Harlequins and Craft Worlds deviate significantly in terms of organization. These Eldari cannot make use of any of the rules or abilities listed in this section and instead have their own rules. Okay, I guess that's pretty obvious. Ynnari is a keyword that some units in this book can gain when taken as part of a reborn army, as detailed in other publications. If a detachment includes any Ynnari units, it is no longer Drukhari and will not gain any of the abilities listed below. Cool. Okay, so that means if you have Ynnari, Dark Eldar, they're no longer gain any of these obsessions or anything. Okay, interesting. Let's just look at this little section here. Matched play. So you can only include Court of the Archon models in a detachment that includes 1 or more Archons, and only 4 of those units in any same detachment. As far as I can tell, Court of the Archon is just like the beast, like, I don't know what they're called, but these guys, Lamians, the Incubi. So the Slith, the Urguls, the Lamian, and the Medusa are the only Court of the Archon models I can see. So to run those guys, you can only run 4 of them, and you're going to need to run an Archon. Okay, and Drukhari Beasts can only be included in a detachment with at least 1 Beastmaster, and you can only have 3 Beasts units in the same detachment. So that's okay. So all Drukhari detachments, excluding super heavy auxiliary detachments, I'm not sure if they have any super heavies, gain the following abilities. Vanguard of the Dark City, so they get OBSEC. Raiding Force. So if your Battle Force army includes at least 3 Drukhari patrol detachments, you get an extra 4 command points. If you have 6 or more patrol detachments, you receive 8 command points. Okay, well, unless they get something later on that lets them break the basic rules of having 3 detachments per army, they ain't gonna get 8 extra command points. But I guess it's a way that if you're gonna run your army with just 3 patrol detachments, I'm not sure why you would do that, but if you wanted to, then you would get a total of 7 command points. So that'd be better than having just 3 command points. So there you go. We'll keep that in mind and see if there's some specific reason why you'd want to run 3 patrol detachments. But there you go. Drukhari Obsessions. So these are kind of like the like chapter tactics. So if your army is Battle Force, all Cabal, Witch Cult, and Homunculus units gain an obsession so long as every other unit in their detachment is from the same Cabal, Witch Cult, or Homunculus coven. If you mix, none of those units gain an obsession. Note that for this purpose, Lilith Hesperex is a Witch Cult unit and Urian is a Homunculus coven unit. The obsession gained depends on the Cabal, Witch Cult, or Homunculus coven that the unit is from. as shown over the next few pages. For example, a Cabal of the Black Heart unit with the Drukhari Obsession's ability gains Thirst for Power. If you have chosen a Cabal, Witch Cult, or Homunculus Coven that does not feature on these lists, you can choose the Cabal, Witch Cult, or Homunculus Coven that best suits the fighting style. Okay. And Blades for Hire, Drukhari Beasts, Incubi, Mandrakes, and Scourges units can be included in a Drukhari detachment without preventing you from getting the obsession. However, those units don't benefit from the obsession. Okay, let's go over the Cabal obsessions. So, Cabal of the Black Heart, Thirst for Power. Some of these have been spoiled already, so you treat the current battle round as being one higher than it actually is when determining what bonuses they gain. Units with this obsession that do not have Power from Pain ability instead gain the Feel No Pain bonus. Okay, so that's pretty good. It kind of advances you forward. So you start the game automatically with Feel No Pain and rerolls advances and charges. Cabal of the Flayed Skull, add 3 inch to your move for all fly models. And enemy units do not receive the benefit of saving throws for being in cover. Made by models with this obsession that can fly or that are embarked upon a transport that can fly. So you've got all your guys and your venoms and stuff that ignores cover. And reroll hit rolls of 1 for such models when attacking with rapid fire weapons. Okay, so that makes your transports loaded up with splinter rifles, rerolling hit rolls of 1, and moving extra fast and ignoring cover. That's okay, yep. Cabal of the Poisoned Tongue. Reroll wound rolls of 1 made for melee weapons and poison weapons. And so poison will be 4 at rerolling 1. Does not apply to artifacts of cruelty. For the purpose of this obsession, poison weapons any with the poison weapon ability. Okay. Rerolling wounds is always good. If you have army-wide rerolling wounds of 1, that's pretty good. It's a nice ability to have. There's not a lot of that in the game. Cabal of the Obsidian Rose. The range characteristic of all assault, rapid fire, and heavy weapons is increased by 6. Does not apply to Iberus or artifacts of cruelty. Okay. Now we have Witch Cult Obsessions. So the Witch Cult Obsessions, Cult of Strife, increase the attacks characteristic of models with this obsession by 1 during any turn in which they were charged, or made heroic intervention. So running a whole bunch of witches, I think they have 2 or 3 attack space, they get another one, that's not too bad. Cult of the Cursed Blade, increase the strength characteristic of models with this obsession by 1. In addition, when a unit with this obsession fails a morale test, only 1 model must flee. Increasing strength plus 1 is not as good as, you know, increasing wound or something like that. But Cult of the Red Grief, units with this obsession can charge in the same turn in which they advance. That's always good. And reroll failed charges. So there's your witches all rerolling your charges and advancing and charging. Homunculus Coven Obsessions, Prophets of Flesh. If a model has this obsession, invuln save conferred by Insensible Pain ability is increased to 4+. Okay, so 5+ goes to 4+. Not bad. Models and enemy units must subtract 1 from the leadership within 6 inches of this. And Coven of 12, improve the armor penetration of melee weapons by 1. Okay, so I guess you're putting that on things like Talos and Rax and things like that. Alright, Stratagems. I like the font of these Stratagems. It's quite Dark Eldar-y. So let's have a look. So they got their Webway Portal, which of course is the Deep Strike, and you can do that to infantry, bikers, or beasts. So you can drop like your bikers down. Somewhere on here is the artifacts. Yep, so here's the Relics Stratagem. Alliance of Agony, 1 CP. Use this before the battle if your warlord is an Archon. Choose 1 Homunculus and up to 1 Succubus from your army. Generate a warlord trait for each character you choose. Note that these characters are only regarded as your warlord for the purpose of these traits. Okay, so for 1 CP, you get 3 warlord traits if you have 1 of each of those warlord characters. So that's pretty cool. Haywire Grenade for a CP. Before you throw a plasma grenade at a vehicle, it makes a single hit roll. If it hits the enemy, D3 mortal wounds. Not too bad. It's like a Hellfire Shell for grenades. 2 CP, lightning fast reactions. Use this stratagem when a Drukhari infantry, vehicle, or biker unit, excluding Urine, Rakoth, or Homunculus, is targeted, and subtract 1 from hit rolls. Pretty good. But for 2 CP, probably a little bit expensive. Prizes from the Dark City. Oh, so this is the artifact stratagem. Oh, what's this then? Architects of Pain for 1 CP. Use this stratagem to start the battle. Choose a unit from your army that has power from Pain. At the end of the battle round, the unit treats the current battle rounds being 1 higher than it actually is. This is cumulative with other similar effects like Cabal of the Black Heart. Okay, well that's situational. Depends what you really need at the time, but it could come in handy if you need to pass a morale or something. Eviscerating Flyby for 1 CP. Which cult unit that can fly advances. If the unit moves over any enemy units, then roll a d6 for each model on a 6+ d6 suffer a mortal wound. Not too bad for CP. Fleshcraft. So end of your movement phase, select a homunculus coven monster or grotesque within 3 inches of a homunculus and regain d3 lost wounds. Fire and Fade. Use this stratagem after a Drukhari unit from your army. Any Drukhari unit shoots, they can immediately move 7 inches. However, cannot charge. So that's decent, very good. Cruel Deception 2 CP. You can shoot and charge after falling back for 2 CP. It's always useful. I wish I had that on the Custodes. Great Enemy. Use this stratagem when a Drukhari unit from your army is chosen to fight. Reroll failed wound rolls if you target Slanesh. So obviously situational. Release the Beasts. 1 CP. Choose a Beastmaster in the charge phase. Until the end of the phase, reroll charge rolls for units of beasts within 6 inches of that Beastmaster. Not bad if you're running beasts. Hyper Stim Backlash for 2 CP. Start of the battle round. Choose a unit from your army that has combat drugs. Until the end of the battle round, the bonus that unit receives from its combat drugs is doubled. At the end of the battle round, roll a d6 for each model in that unit. On a 1, they suffer a mortal wound. If you use this strategy on a model that has a Stim Addict Warlord trait and or File Bouquet artifact, all its bonuses are doubled, but it automatically suffers d3 mortal wounds at the end of the battle round. That's quite a lot, d3 mortals. I don't know if I mentioned about the combat drugs. Let's just go back and check it again. So the combat drugs, units with this ability gain a bonus during the battle depending on the drugs. Before the battle, you roll on the table to see which combat drug the unit is using. Yeah, okay. So you just roll at the beginning of the battle, and then for 2 CP on a particular round, you can double its effect. So not too bad. Screaming Jets for 1 CP. Use this if you have not used a Webway Portal stratagem this battle. You can use this to set up a flying vehicle in Deep Strike. So pretty good. And anything on it obviously goes in it. Not bad for 1 CP, but then you can't Deep Strike. Freakish Spectacle 1 CP. When an enemy fails a morale test within 6 inches of Urian Rekarth or a Homunculus Coven unit, 1 additional model flees. Torturer's Craft. Use this stratagem before Urian Rekarth or a Homunculus Coven unit from your army fights. Until the end of the phase, reroll failed wound rolls. Pretty good, but again, 2 CP seems a lot for that. Whoa, it's a lot of stratagems. 3 whole pages. Hunt from the Shadows. 1 CP. Use this stratagem when the Drukhari infantry unit receiving the benefit of cover is targeted. They can add 2 to their saving throws. Pretty good. It does not affect invulnerable saves. 1 CP, pray they don't take you alive. Use the strategy if a Drukhari unit slays the enemy warlord. For the remainder of the battle, every model in the enemy army subtracts 1 from leadership. Soul Trap, use this strategy when an Archon kills an enemy character in the fight phase. Increase attack strength leadership of the Archon. Enhanced Ether Sails, use this strategy when a Raider or a Ravager advances, add 8 inch to the move characteristic instead of rolling. Onslaught, 1 CP, before an Incubator unit fights. At the end of the phase, each time you roll an unmodified hit roll of a 6, the attack scores 2 hits instead of 3. Crucible of Malediction for 2 CP. Use this stratagem in your Psychic phase. Select a Homunculus and roll a d6 for each Psyker within 12 inches for it. 12 inches of it. 4+ suffers d3 mortal wounds. You can only use this once per battle. Obviously, if your Homunculus is right in the middle of a whole bunch of your enemy Psykers, there's probably some shit going down anyway, and it seems a lot for 2 CP. 1 CP for Torment Grenade. Use this stratagem before a model from your army fires a Phantasm Grenade Launcher. If the enemy is hit by this weapon, in addition to usual effects, roll 3d6. If higher than the leadership, it suffers d3 mortal wounds. That's pretty good. I don't know what the Phantasm Grenade Launcher does, but for CP it makes it do mortals. Let's just have a quick look here. Phantasm Grenade Launcher is 18-inch assault d3 Strength 1, 1 damage. If a unit is hit by one or more Phantasm Grade 8 launchers, subtract 1 from its leadership. Okay, so it's not really meant to injure anything, it's just supposed to be a leadership debuff. Although now, for a CP, you can turn it into a possible D3 mortal wounds. You still have to beat the leadership. Agents of Vect for 3 CP. Okay, so this is the one that's been blowing up the internet. For 3 CP, you can basically stop someone's stratagem. On a 1, the stratagem resolves as normal. On 2 to 5, they get the CPs back, but the stratagem doesn't go off and they can't use it again. And on a 6, they don't get it back and it doesn't go off. And you can't use this for before the battle or during deployment stratagems. That is obviously extremely powerful. You need to have 3 CP in the bag at all times, ready to go, or be pretty aware of the big stratagems that your enemy wants to use. But the 3d6 charge on the Blood Angels, Custodes, Stooping, Dive are just 2 that come straight to mind. You know, the guard one that lets the super heavies hit on 2s and advance and charge. So many good stratagems out there that you can just stop on a 5 out of 6 chance for 3 CP. That's pretty good. Now people are saying, so this is a Cabal of the Black Heart stratagem. I would say that that implies that you need a Cabal of the Black Heart. You obviously need a Cabal of the Black Heart units in order to use it. And whether or not you need a whole Cabal of the Black Heart detachment, let's see. You only gain the obsession if your whole detachment is from the same. So you need a Cabal of the Blackheart detachment, and then you'd be able to use this. Use this stratagem at the start of the first battle round, but before the first turn has begun. Pick up to 3 Cabal of the Poison Tongue units, and immediately remove these and set them up again as described in the deployment section of your mission. Interesting. Okay. So it doesn't let you deep strike or anything. It's a redeployment stratagem. Sorry, at the start of the first battle round, Insidious Misdirection. Okay, so it lets you, for 2 CP, redeploy 3 units. Not too bad. Failure is not an option. 1 CP, use the stratagem when Cabal of the Obsidian Rose unit fails a morale test. Select them, which models will flee, but before removing them, they can shoot or fight again. If the enemy models are slain by these attacks, none of the models flee from your unit. Wow. For 1 CP. Wow, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. Masters of the Shadowed Sky, Cabal of the Flayed Skull. Use the stratagem when you select these people to shoot in the shooting phase. Until the end of phase, add 1 to hit rolls made against fly. For 3 CP, Cult of Strife stratagem. No method of death beyond our grasp. I like that name. Use this stratagem for 3 CP just after a Cult of Strife unit has destroyed an enemy unit in the shooting or fight phase. If used in the fight phase, use this stratagem after the attacking unit has consolidated. If the enemy unit was destroyed in the shooting phase, your unit can immediately shoot an additional time. If it was destroyed in the fight phase, you can immediately fight an additional time. Pretty sweet, especially the shooting. If you have a Cult of Strife crazy shooting unit for 3 CP, that's your fight again or shoot again stratagem for 3 CP with some restrictions. Concealed Booby Traps, Cult of the Cursed Blade. Use this stratagem when an enemy unit finishes a charge within 1 inch of your unit, is holding on terrain 4+. Okay, so this is the same as the Mortal Wound Catechin stratagem. But it's hard to do. You got to have your whole unit in cover, and then you got to get charged, and then you still have to roll a 4-up just to do D3 Mortal Wounds. So it's a lot to go through. 2 CP Athletic Aerialists, Cult of the Red Grief. Use this stratagem just before Cult of the Red Grief infantry consolidates. Instead of moving toward the nearest enemy, the unit consolidates up to 6 inches towards the nearest Red Grief transport. If all models in the unit end this move within 3 inches of the transport, they immediately embark. Pretty sweet, but you gotta make sure your transports are nearby. It's only 6 inches. You have to end up within 3 inches. So actually you can only be, 6 inches away. 6 inches, 3 inches, 9 inches. You could be 9 inches. You have to be, all models end up within 3 inches, so you have to be closer than that for 2 CP. Yeah, it'll be hard to use. Black Cornucopian for 2 CP. Prophets of Flesh stratagem. Use this stratagem at the end of your movement phase. Pick a unit of Prophets of Flesh racks from your army, remove it, and then set it up within 6 inches of the edge of the battlefield, 9 inches from an enemy. So deep strike your racks for 2 CP. Esoteric Kill delivered from afar. Dark Creed stratagem. Use this stratagem for 2 CP when you select a Dark Creed unit to shoot until the end of the phase. Models in that unit can target enemy characters for 2 CP. Administer Punishment, Coven of 12 stratagem for a CP. Use this stratagem when you select Coven of 12 unit from your army to shoot. Until end of the phase, they can target enemy units that are within 1 inch of friendly Coven of 12 units. But each time you roll a hit roll of 1, you instead resolve it against your own unit. Okay. Artifacts. Okay, just having a quick look through the artifacts. Most of the weapon ones are okay. Let's look through the non-weapon ones. So Helm of Spite lets you deny like a Psyker in a psychic phase, and if you successfully deny, the Psyker suffers Perils of the Warp. Not bad. Homunculus only. Whenever you make inured suffering roll, you get it on a 4+. So 4+ Funeral Pain for a Homunculus. Writ of the Living Muse, Cabal of the Blackheart, reroll wound rolls of 1 within 6 inches. Armor of Misery is a 3+ save and -1 to hit in the fight phase. Obsidian Veil gives you a 4+ invuln after you failed your Shadowfield save. This File Bouquet lets a Cult of Strife Succubus get extra combat drugs. Traitor's Embrace, if you kill this person, then on a 2-up you take D6 mortal wounds. Prophets of Flesh. This goes on the Homunculus from Prophets of Flesh. Denies Overwatch, and an enemy unit within 6 inches of you fights last. That's pretty good. Prophets of Flesh is what? So we're talking hopefully something hard hitting in the combat phase. Let's see. Are we talking like the Talos and things like that? That might be interesting to try. Homunculus Covens. Well, it's a Homunculus Covens, and Prophets of Flesh is one of the obsessions. Yeah, which gives you the 4+ Funeral Pain. And Talos. So a Talos that's Prophets of Flesh goes to a 4+ Funeral Pain. And if you have somebody with this Vexator Mask next to them, they can charge in and deny Overwatch. That's pretty sweet. And then a couple of more weapons there. Okay, nothing too crazy in the artifacts. Warlord traits, there's 2 pages of Warlord traits. Wow. There's Warlord traits for Cabal, Warlord traits for Witch Cult, and Warlord traits for Homunculus. And then every single cult, Cabal, and Homunculus Coven has its own specific Warlord trait. Wow, that's a lot of choice. So Drukhari characters have to generate from their appropriate one. So you can't be a Witch Cult and get a Cabal one. Okay, Cabal Warlord traits. Reroll failed wound rolls for the Warlord. Add 1 to attacks and regain 1 lost wound if they slayed somebody in the fight phase. Opposing player must roll an extra dice when taking morale tests for units within 3 inches. Okay, so it's 3 for the Cabal, 3 for the Witch Cult. Quicksilver Fighter. Warlord always fights first. Stim Addict. Determining bonus receives from combat drugs. Roll 2 dice instead of 1 and apply both results. Duplicate results are cumulative. Or you can pick 2 different bonuses to apply to this warlord. That is sick. Okay, Precision Blows. Each time you roll a wound roll of 6+ for this warlord in the fight phase, target suffers a mortal wound in addition. And Homunculus Covens, Master Regenicist. Warlord gains D3. Wounds, Master Nemesine. Add 1 to the wound rolls for this warlord. And Master Artisan reroll inured to suffering rolls for Homunculus Coven's models. Okay, probably the cult one is the best. So far, nothing to regain CPs. So let's go Cabal of the Blackheart. Warlord. Cabal of the Blackheart. Here it is. So on a 6, you get a command point back. For using a stratagem, for you and your opponent using a stratagem. So that's the crappy version, and that's a Cabal of the Blackheart only. Cabal of the Poison Tongue, use Warlord Leadership. Cabal of the Obsidian Rose, increase damage by 1. Cabal of the Flayed Skull, increase strength and attacks by 1. Cult of Strife, each time you roll a 6, Warlord makes 3 hits instead of 1. Cult of Red Grief, add 1 invuln save to the Warlord. Not bad. Cult of Cursed Blade. Each time you roll an unmodified saving throw of 6, the enemy unit suffers a mortal wound. Prophets of Flesh. Once per battle, you can roll a single hit roll, wound roll, saving throw. In addition, if your army is battled for roll D3 at the battle begins, you gain a number of additional command points equal to the result. That's interesting. So that's kind of like Grand Strategist. You could just get 1 extra CP for all that, and that's it, or 3 extra CP, which is about the number of CP you might get back from having a better CP strategy. Interesting. Roll 2d6 for each enemy unit within 3 inches of your warlord at the start of the fight phase. It suffers a mortal wound. Covenant of 12. Reduce all damage inflicted on your warlord by 1. And warlord fails a saving throw against a weapon and inflicts 3 damage. Okay. And then a little table, of course, for the name characters, of which there aren't that many. 3 name characters and what they get. Alright, that's a lot of choice. Nothing seems too overly powerful there, and no big CP regenerator. And points. Alright, I got my old index here. Drukhari points. Okay. Archon went up to 70 from 54. Homunculus went down to 70 from 75, and the Succubus is 50 now, and it used to be 72. So the Succubus got a lot cheaper, but the Archon went up. Cablite Warriors are down 1 point to 6. That's pretty good. So 30 points for a basic 5-man Cablite Warrior unit. Racks are up, down from 10 to 9, and Witches probably came down from 9 to 8. Beastmaster 36 from 56. So the Beastmaster came right down to 36. Grotesques 32. That went up 1, and Incubi are 16 now, down from 18. Lemian 32 now halved to 15. Mandrakes 19 to 16. Medusa down to 21 from 28. Slith is 27 from 44, and Urgal is 15 from 30. Wow, big reductions. Clawed Fiends are 32 from 32. Hellions are 14 from 17. Chimera are 10 from 10. Razorwing Flocks are 12. Now I can't remember what they were adjusted to, but they're 12 now. And Reavers are 19 from 30. Wow, Reavers got a lot cheaper. I think that's going to be pretty good for Reavers that are now only 19 points instead of 30. And Scourges 12 from 14. Chronos 65. Where's Chronos? From 102. Wow, lost like 40 points. The Ravager is 80 from 95. So the Ravager got cheaper by 15 points, and the Talos are 75 down from 88. Wow, big reductions. The Raider is 65 points now. It used to be 95. Wow, we're going to see a lot more of these things. 30-point reduction for the Raider. Venom is 55, and it was 65. So even the Venom's cheaper by 10 points. Razorwing Jetfighter 105 and from 115, and the Void Raven Bomber 169 down to 155. So more reductions. Drazar is 120. He was 140. Lilith is 80. She was 125. So Lilith has come down by 30%. 40-point loss on Lilith. And Urian is 90 down from 112. Let's see if any of these weapons made any big changes. Your basic blaster is up by 2 points from 15 to 17. That's interesting. The Dark Lance is the same. Disintegrator Cannon is halved from 30 to 15. Haywire Blasters from 12 down to 8. Heat Lance is from 25 points down to 12 points, so over half. Hex Rifle is halved. Liquefier Gun is a little bit cheaper. Ossifactor is down from 13 to 7. Phantasmagoria Launcher, blah, 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 blah. Shredder, Spirit Vortex down 3. Splinter Cannon down 5. Splinter Rifle, all that stuff is free. Stinger Pistol down 2. Stinger Pod down 11 points. Twin Liquefier, obviously. And the Void River Missiles down from 25 to 10. Chain Snares. Where's Chain Snares? These are new war gear, I guess. Chain Snares is not in the index. Cluster Caltrops is 3, down from 5. Grav Talon is 3, down from 5. and Grizzly Trophy, Spirit Probe, Splinter Racks. These are all upgrades, vehicle upgrades that are not in here. And melee weapons, basically not a lot of big changes. We're talking all small numbers. The Husk Blade went down from 10 to 6. And now you have to pay for your Talos Gauntlet, 15 points. That wasn't in the index. Venom Blade's down 5 till 2. Okay, and I believe that is it. So that is the Drukhari Codex, Dark Eldar, the Dark Kin, going out to Skari. He must be pretty happy about this. Most Dark Eldar players are very happy about this. Lots and lots of flexibility. Looks like some quite powerful options in here. This looks like it's going to be quite a good book and a force for everyone to deal with. So thank you very much for watching this read along. Click on the video to like below. Consider subscribing to the channel by clicking on the button there. And if you really want to support what we do, then consider supporting us on Patreon by clicking the link up there. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.